What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in. If you are, it's my first time going live on YouTube, so hopefully it works out, and we'll do this more often. I haven't checked my audio levels, but I did a test earlier, and I think this should be pretty good where I'm at. So, welcome to another episode of the TomCat Chronicles. Hope you're having a great life. It's May 10th here, 2018. Getting pretty warm out here in AZ. I think right now it's about 100. You know, that's the way of the desert, man. Life for me. So, anyway, hey, it's TomCat. You know, he knows about all of that. Getting into politics, I'm like a heavyweight on the mat. Don't be scared though, wanna have a friendly chat. No need to pull out and bust your gat. Instead, put on some music and listen to the hi-hat go rat-a-tat-tat. Now, let's get into the Middle East. Love, Trump, Assange, and roarmongers doing wrong. Okay, so for the first, topic I want to get on the podcast, right now, we, as an American country, the U.S., has backed out of Iran. We backed out of the Iran nuclear deal, which is basically a deal put on by many world powers, put on by a lot of different countries around the world, including China and Russia. So it's not just an American involving itself in foreign affairs that we shouldn't. It's more like the world came around together to try and help this small Middle Eastern country called Iran to develop nuclear energy, which a lot of people say they're going to use to, develop nuclear weaponry. And that's certainly an argument that people could have. I could see where they'd be scared of that. And according to some, I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast right before I did this podcast, and apparently, according to Mike Baker, who's a former CIA either agent or analyst, they've not failed some inspections, but they definitely kept some things secret that they're not supposed to. So there is always that kind of a thing on both sides, if you ask me. I mean, and you're talking to someone, T. My opinion on nuclear weapons is more people should have them. Doesn't mean the U.S. and other countries need to necessarily help them develop them, but the more people have nuclear weapons, the more I think people will behave and get along. I mean, I might be wrong, but that's just the way I feel. I think if everybody knows everybody on the street is packing a gun, more than likely people are gonna behave, or at least try to resolve problems peacefully, because nobody wants anyone to die. There's really no threat. I could be wrong about that. Human nature might prove me wrong. Definitely not saying I'm a know-it-all or that I definitely got this figured out, but that's my thoughts on nuclear weapons. So, in my opinion, it's a bad thing. Generally, just because we've made another enemy in the Middle East that we really didn't need. Iran is not a terrible country. Iran has been trying to work themselves out pretty well, and there's a lot of educated people in Iran that actually love America. They're awake, so that's just my perspective on it, and the research I've done on it supports that. I think we need to maybe help Iran. Backing out of the deal might have been a good idea, but I don't think the way we did it is good. And everybody who watches this podcast enough knows that I actually like Trump. I like Trump, but I like Trump. I didn't vote for him, and I probably won't vote for him in the next election, but I support his presidency. I think he's making a lot of good choices, and I think he's doing things as a president that I consider positive, as opposed to Obama, who got a lot of love and respect for not doing a whole lot, in my opinion. The U.S. has tried to overthrow Iran several times, by the way. They tried to overthrow Iran several times in the past, and that's probably what more of this is. Recently, North Korea, excuse me. Recently, North Korea came down to South Korea. The leader, Kim Jong-un, came down to South Korea and made peace with between the two nations. First time ever in their recent history, I'm talking the last 100 years at least, from the research I've done, that the president or leader of North Korea has come across the DMZ line to meet with the president or leader of South Korea and discuss peace. To be honest with you, as far as I can recall and as far as I can remember, I don't think the president or leaders ever come to South Korea to discuss peace. So we're making history. We're definitely seeing history being made, I guess I should say, under Trump. And, there was history made under Obama too, but in my opinion, not the greatest kinds of marks in history. That's for, the future and humanity and, the near future to decide, I guess. But either way, it's definitely a positive thing, definitely a great blessing in our time. And I think we should really stop and think about this. Like, peace is possible, even from the most, what is considered crazy and just wild types of people. Kim Jong-un is, admittedly, he's a lunatic. He's crazy. I mean, he's done things that are just irrational, but I don't know what we could have done about that, if anything. We call ourselves the police of the world, but whenever you're the police of the world, you have to consider that not destroying a nation or destroying the leader or trying to do something about something minor when compared to a world, meaning one thing Kim Jong-un has been known for doing is torturing American prisoners or people, tourists caught here that weren't supposed to be here. He's starved his own people. That's one of the reasons I think he had to make peace, is because they were just literally running out of food. North Korea's been in a famine so bad the last decade that the government has advised their citizens to chew on roots from plants literally just growing out in their front yard. So, that's the desperation and dire consequences of the state of the world there in North Korea. So hopefully that gets better much sooner. Hopefully the South Koreans accept them and the North Koreans aren't just, making a joke or trying to weasel their way out of all the bad things they've done. Hopefully they really are trying to make things better, and, much prayers and positive thoughts for the people over there on that side of the world. The whole reason I bring up North Korea, by the way, is because now that North Korea is no longer a threat, I believe the U.S. And the intelligence community, some of in the covert ops community, have to decide what's the next threat. And now the next threat will be Iran and probably Syria. Syria is another country we've seen a little bit of violence bubbling up all of a sudden. Kind of never really goes away there, so all of a sudden might not quite strike the state or description that those countries are in, but at the same time it did go silent, and it was kind of just not really a newsworthy type of story for years, and all of a sudden now, bam, here we are and we're thinking about it. So, those are my opinion on things in the Middle East. Like I said, the Iran nuclear deal, I'm kind of upset about that just because it's just an unnecessary move. We'll see what the consequences are, both positive and negative here, I'm sure. And hopefully we're not looking at another war. Russia's already kind of said that they're going to step up and help Iran a little bit. Iran's already said now that the U.S. is no longer in the deal, they're kind of, boundless on their levels of nuclear energy they can strive for. Nobody else in the UN or world community was really hell-bent on keeping them from developing other things. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. I would also like to point out that in one form I do kind of like the fact that we're getting out of it, because it makes us more isolationist, which I know a lot of people think America shouldn't be an isolationist country, and I would say for 80% of what we do, you're correct, but we definitely need to get our hand out of other things that we don't need to be in. Of course, this is coming from a everyday, average, American citizen, so take that for what it is. Let's move away from like the big, world events for a little bit and just talk about love. Love is an interesting thing. You know, it's all over the place, even if we choose not to see it that way. When you hate something, in reality, you, in a form, do kind of love it, because you wouldn't let something bother you so much if you didn't have so much of an attachment to it. And one thing they talk about in Buddhism is attachment. Attachment's a very important thing in human life because it can be both good and bad. Most Buddhists try to detach themselves from everything in lives, and while that's very admirable and noble, something that I think if you have the compulsion to do, you should definitely go after that. But speaking from a bit of a, well, I don't know what you want to call it, a bit of a glutton myself, I guess, I say go out there and live your life. Grab your attachments and love the things you love. I mean, what makes you happy, and just enjoy that shit. I mean, we only have a limited time here. If you like a girl, go for her. I mean, at the same time, don't let it ruin the rest of your life. Enjoy the rest of your life, and whatever happens, happens. One thing in Taoism we like to say, not actually out of the Tao Te Ching itself, but from one of the great Taoist philosophers, Zongzi, I believe was how his name is pronounced, said, if good happens, then good. If bad happens, then good. Meaning, no matter what happens, let it happen and get through it. Nothing is permanent, everything is temporary, and, it all passes. Even if somehow people in the future, like Ray Kurzweil and all these futurists, figure out how to somehow transport our consciousness onto computers or robots or whatever the case might be in the future, that's going to pass at some point too. Eventually that's going to be outdated, and the new thing is going to be so new that nobody even wants to mess with those old computers that have people from 1,000 years ago has their consciousness on it. Unless we're there for some kind of teaching device. I could see maybe 1,500 years from now where people go into a library sort of structure, and inside it's all of us as people, as a hologram, just coming out and talking about, at this point in time, I was this, I had this as a job, I was this age. You know when you go to the museum and you see those those figurines, and they're either made out of ceramic of some kind or some kind of very hard clay, and you press a button that has info on it, and it's the person talking to you in their voice trying to tell you about their life. It'll be like that, but it'll be you and me, and we'll be in a hologram, and it'll be a bit more immersive. Be pretty cool. Kind of funny to think that one day you and me maybe could be some sort of futuristic, hyper advanced statue in a museum giving info about how life was right now. History repeats itself, and it likes to rhyme, as I like to say. Don't know how I got off on that. Somehow I got off on that from love, so we'll just go back to love. I want to talk about a very interesting phrase called "love the one you're with," which is an old hippie phrase or philosophy, meaning no matter who you're with, love them as if they were the one you were meant to be with, kind of thing. Everybody has varying degrees of belief in it, and everyone has a different kind of take on that phrase so far that I've asked, but I think there's something definitely to it. Kind of going along with the Christian philosophy of, turn the other cheek. Maybe you don't need to turn the other cheek, but a lot of times you might be working with somebody, or you might be in a family with somebody, whether that person's a friend or somebody you've grown up with or somebody you're blood related to, that maybe you currently you hate. Maybe you're justifiably so you hate. You can, within your own mind and more for yourself than anything else, learn to love that person and make the situation between you two, the altercations and the interactions, more positive than negative. And I think that's what we should all strive to do. Sometimes that means getting a little bit confrontational. Maybe that means even getting violent in certain cases. But either way, I'd like to just point out that, love the one you're with is something good to go by. And if we all tried to live by that, I think the world would be a better place. Kind of going along with the golden rule, treat others as you'd like to be treated. And just recall that, everybody's different, so do your best to try and interpret what that person would like to be treated with. Get out of the golden vape for the golden roll. Yeah, so, love the one you're with, do the best you can to make people in your life happy, and do the best you can to make yourself happy. And also remember too, a lot of times in life, what we at one point thought that we hated, or we might dislike for a certain reason, in the future we might like that thing or learn to love that thing. I remember when I was younger, I was almost like forbidden to listen to rap music. My dad just really didn't like rap music, and we could really only listen to Christian music, stuff that didn't have cuss words or stuff about sex, anything explicit in it. And he particularly just did not care for rap. Now, there were certain rap artists that he did, let us listen to, and we had our opportunities to hear good music. I always loved Linkin Park. And Linkin Park was always a very unique band because they didn't cuss in their music, and they were very artistic with their lyrics. So they could talk about things that were real and maybe even a bit explicit in a way that normally you wouldn't think it was explicit, or even you might not even interpret that way. So, rap music was something that at first I kind of had to learn to grow with. I always kind of liked Eminem. I always dug his music from the early 2000s. I remember one time riding home on the bus in middle school and listening to "Cleaning Out My Closet," and just the song blew my mind a little bit, because that song's not about anything. I mean, it's negative, but it's about overcoming a negative situation. It's not about shooting someone or selling drugs or doing bad things to get by. It's about having a fucked up family, being born into a messed up situation and just dealing with it, and maybe not feeling the greatest about yourself, because that's how you're made to feel sometimes when you're with people that don't necessarily love you in a way that is proper or that they should. So eventually, after a while, I just loved rap. I mean, even again, I listened to Linkin Park, and the rap, excuse me, the rap, mostly rap songs were the ones that I sort of loved the most. A Place for My Head, again, another rap song that is just about dealing with a negative situation and could be misconstrued as a negative song, but not at all, actually. It's about something I think we all go through, whether we have a family member or a friend or a teacher or a boss or a coworker or whatever. I don't know. We all have a toxic, or come across people that are toxic and create toxic relationships. Maybe it's just school in general or work in general that, just makes you a terrible person. I mean, we all have our flaws, we all have our ups and downs. So that's part of being human. That's why we're not robots, and that's why creating AI or robotic artificial intelligence is a beautiful and just, mind-blowing and very, very significantly life-changing event, because we are not that. We are human. We have emotions. So, dwell in those emotions. Don't let them get the best of you. But, enjoy them for what they are. Take them for what they are, and, be human. Learn to be a better human. Because in some ways, humans can be better than robots. And that's why, in a lot of Judeo-Christian religions, it says we're created in God's image, because we can't create ourselves. We can't create something because we're not the God that these religions speak of. And I'm trying to speak very, not walking on eggshells necessarily, but I'm trying to speak in a way to really reiterate the fact that I don't believe in a God in what most people think of as a God. I believe in a supernatural force or entity that is omnipresent, meaning always there and ever present. There is no escaping this Tao, and that's much, very close to the Christian God. But again, I don't think they're the same thing. I think they're a different lens looking at the very same thing. So they see it differently and they describe it differently. You have to make up your own mind and, maybe even have to make up your own interpretation, much as I've done. I would describe myself as a pantheist or a omnitheist. I believe in many different viewpoints because they all have something truthful and positive to, give and to benefit everyone. By the way, I got the lemon OG cushion here. Redwood Wood Drink. Good shit. One of my favorite strains of all time. Most definitely. 24K Gold's a new strain I tried out recently with Bud, and I have to say I'm a very big fan of that one. Pretty good hybrid that definitely gives me a foggy kind of heady high. Had a bad connection there for a second, so I apologize if the quality got bad there. Not sure what that could be because of, so again, I apologize. But anyway, I was almost done with this podcast. Really quick, I wanted to get a couple more things out here. Hashtag reconnect Julian Assange. Julian Assange is a great activist and hacktivist, I guess you could call him. He's also a publisher and a journalist that founded WikiLeaks, a website dedicated to getting information out there that many governments, including the U.S., wouldn't like out there. And while that might not always be the best thing, I think it's good that we have these websites and people out there pushing the information, because we as citizens should do our best and have a right to know some of this information. Again, maybe not all of it, but I believe a lot of what gets out we do have a right to know, and it makes, I think it makes the American public better for it. So yeah, I definitely need to give him some internet connection. The Ecuadorian embassy he's been hiding out in London has, not given him any internet connection, and has kept him trapped pretty much within that embassy, because once he gets out, he'll get extradited to the U.S. and face trial here for things like espionage and treason, which in my opinion is greatly unfounded, and just the U.S. trying to get back at him for what he's, exposed. One thing I'd like to get out there is, there's a lot of warmongers out there, again, going back to the whole North Korean thing, and, the world leaders trying to always have some kind of conflict in the world going on for the use of weapon cells or whatever it might be. And I just want to say, man, imagine if some of these warmongers, and I understand, again, there's a lot more to it than just that they're crazy and they like to see shit being blown up and tanks being thrown, and there are all those people out there. I mean, we all have a little bit of a violent side, I guess. Anybody can, get violent given the right situation or the right or the wrong situation. And knock on wood, pray that we never have to run into that, really. But imagine if they had just bought a badass PC or gotten some kind of VR equipment and just started playing some kind of maybe not Call of Duty, because maybe they're not into the foot soldier thing, but a game where they have a base or an army. God dang, excuse me. Maybe StarCraft. Imagine if they just got into that and just started loving that, and that's all they did, and just spent hella money on it. And I mean, weapons are going to sell themselves. People are not going to stop buying guns. People are not going to stop buying missiles. Not for the near seeable future, I can tell you that. With or without government, U.S. or otherwise, Russia, China, you name it, interference. Okay, so it'd be pretty awesome and kind of a cool thing if a lot of these warmongers and just crazy fucks got into video games and just started becoming the most awesome video games because they have the most money and time to just spend on it all day. Interesting concept, if nothing else. Maybe the world would be better if we all just played some games and got over this bad shit, whatever it might be that is bothering us. We all have our lot in life to deal with, and I hope whatever gets you through helps you out, whether that's like me smoking, praying, and making friends, venting, talking to people, recording conversations, just oftentimes with myself. I've been doing that with my cell phone. I just record something that maybe I'm not comfortable sharing with anybody else. And hey, whatever the NSA, the government, Google, whoever the fuck else hears that. But you know, it's just something where maybe I don't have to worry about somebody directly, in my everyday life hearing something that I might be thinking and I'm not comfortable sharing. You know, whatever it is that helps you get through, roll with that. Run it. And if you haven't found it yet, keep looking. It's out there. I would encourage anyone to just, keep trying to get through in life, do the best you can, keep it more positive than negative. The future is bright and possibilities are endless. You just have to be willing to chase it enough and, roll with the flow. Row with the flow. Hashtag row with the flow. So anyway, that's mainly what I wanted to get out on here. New music to check out. I've been checking out DJ Smokey, great fucking artist, trap music artist that Fernando Guzman, great buddy and brother of mine, showed me. Shout out to everybody in my life keeping me steady and keeping me going, keeping my life interesting and keeping it fun. Love y'all and hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you want to check out more, please do. I'm on YouTube, Tomasu Kush. THC high five on everything else, including Instagram and Facebook, and yeah. Love y'all. This is the fucking, I don't know. Fuck it. This is me signing off. Peace the fuck out.